A dead man at the bottom of the English Channel leads to an evil criminal mastermind.
Murder is a nasty, nasty business.
Tiny pieces of forensic evidence help investigators close in on a man who nearly got away with murder.
Though the pathologist hadn't said foul play was evident, there was obviously something very much amiss.
And other repulsive crimes.
It was certainly an interesting case with many twists and turns on it.
Police and CSIs follow a twisted path to uncover the secrets behind a dead man with no name. What they discover is a dark, scandalous story.
Prosecution calls Sheena Walker.
About stolen identity, accusations of incest.
Why did you live this fabrication?
And murder. It is July 1996, just off the coast of Devon, near Britain's southwest tip. Veteran fisherman John Kopek and his son are plying the waters for sea bass. They catch more than they bargained for.
We've gone up across a stretch of ground called the Roughs. Hauled, no fish. Shot on again, no fish. And we decided to shorten distance up back to home. And on the last haul we hauled, and we had a body laid on top of the cod end. He was curled up in a fetal position, laid on top of the fish, wearing good clothing, a very expensive watch, damage to the back of his head.
They take their gruesome catch ashore to police. Investigators overlook a clue right under their noses that will take months to discover. Detective Constable Ian Clenahan has been on the job for only 6 days in this sleepy tourist town. A dead body gets the rookie's attention.
It was a weekend, the weekend of the 28th of July. I was in the office and we got a call from our radio control room saying that there was a dead body had been trawled up by a local fishing boat and had been brought into Brixham Harbour. It was a male body, fully dressed, in a shirt, corduroy trousers and shoes. The body itself had no identification on it. There was a tattoo on the back of his hand, which at that stage was undistinguishable. There was a gold chain around his neck, and the pockets were turned out on the trousers, and Rolex watch on his wrist.
The 28-year-old detective says the first task is to identify the body. Gossip spreads, and people in Devon think they know who this Rolex man is. 1 week earlier, a young man had gone missing after a night of drinking in a local pub.
The youngster had been drowned in the bay, I think it was 3 days before, and we assumed they got drunk and gone on a pedalo and sunk it. We assumed it was him, you know, on the assumption there's not too many bodies out there.
But this is no youngster. Hamish Turner was Her Majesty's coroner for Devon and Cornwall in 1996. The autopsy determines that the dead man is at least 40, even 45.
Well, it was a fascination. My officer rang me up and said we've had a body brought in from Brixham. It was fascinating to try and find out what had happened. We did have underclothes made in the United States and a pair of trousers made in Canada, so we knew there was some sort of connection there.
Police decide to check dental records. If the man is British, they'll be on file. Right now, that's the best shot at finding out who this Rolex man is. Dr. Gian Fernando is the chief pathologist for Devon and Cornwall.
He had some injuries. One of the main injuries he had was a 3-centimeter laceration on the back of his head, which was not a substantial injury, just a skin-deep laceration. No fracture, no brain injury. So I didn't attach much importance to it at that point. He also had 2 other injuries. Again, you quite commonly find bruising on bodies which have been recovered from the water.
Fernando's conclusion leads police to their first theory, that the man was a lone sailor who had lost control of his vessel and was flung overboard. The body is discovered nearly 10 kilometers from shore. Police call in experts to prove that the dead man died at sea. Brian Gallimore was the crime scene manager assigned to the case.
Was this man that we've got in the water fishing 10 miles away, had got swept into the water by a high wave and had found his way down into that particular spot? What would be the tide movements? How would the water move? Could the water have taken him from shore and dropped him there, or taken him and left him in that particular part of the ocean?
Dr. Bob Allen is a specialist on ocean currents.
What I was required to do was to find out how the body got there.
Allen looks at river levels, winds, and tides to see if forces of nature could have carried the man 10 kilometers out to sea. His conclusion? No way.
I was able to show fairly easily that they were non-starters. There hadn't been much rain in the previous week or two, so there wasn't much freshwater flow, and the winds generally were onshore.
Now it's up to the police to figure out how he got there. They ask around looking for a missing sailboat and find nothing. The case is literally put on ice. Dr. Fernando has Rolex man's body stored in a minus 25 degrees Celsius freezer.
We left the mortuary with no real indication of homicide at that time, but sufficient to say that the body was still dealt with as though it was a crime scene, and a crime scene it had to be dealt with as, with the usual stripping of the body and all the clothing put in separate bags and for later analysis if it becomes necessary.
The case is all but closed, but one young cop has a gut feeling that something's not right. He can't let go.
You've got to keep all avenues open, and you've got to really go on the facts that you've got and work out the most likely scenario and then progress your investigation from there, really. So no, at that stage I wasn't thinking certainly anything sinister.
Clenahan turns his attention to the dead man's Rolex. A Rolex self-winding watch stops after about 2 days without movement, even underwater. It gives Clenahan an approximate date of death, July 20th. And the watch offers another clue.
I sought a lot of advice from other people in different fields, and one of the pieces of advice that I got was the fact that the Rolex watch, if it was sent off to the Rolex company, then they could open the watch up, and in fact there is an engraving inside the watch which would tell me if that Rolex watch had been serviced at any stage, and if so, where.
Rolex man now has a serial number, 154402. Ten days pass with no new leads in the mysterious death of Rolex man. Constable Ian Clenahan turns to old-fashioned police work to seek answers.
We get a lot of cargo ships passing this area, so one of the main jobs was to check all the ships that had passed through these shipping lanes. It all drew a blank, all the inquiries with the shipping agents, the ferries, the missing persons. There was nothing really that fitted the bill as to who this person might be.
I mean, the man could have fallen off a boat, he could have fallen off the cliffs fishing, he could have fallen off a cross-channel ferry, which was one line of inquiry. Very often we get divers that are lost. Clearly this wasn't a diver, but there's many, many different ways people can lose their life out to sea.
Then the investigation gets its first big break. Files at Rolex reveal that a man named Ronald Joseph Platt bought the watch in Germany in 1967. But after 30 years, the watch could easily have changed owners. Dental records confirm the dead man is indeed Ronald Platt. His last known address is hundreds of miles to the northeast in Essex. Why he died so far from home is a mystery Ian Clenahan is determined to solve.
A good few hundred miles from here. It's a good five-hour drive from this area. So that in itself was strange. I mean, what could a guy be doing that is based possibly 5 hours away? be doing in the sea off Teignmouth at that time.
Clenahan reaches Sergeant Peter Redman of the Essex Police.
Hello, Sergeant Peter Redman speaking.
Hello, Sergeant. This is Detective Constable Ian Clenahan calling from Torbay down in Devon. I need your help with something.
What can I do for you, Constable?
Yes, 1996, the phone call from Devon and Cornwall, asking if I could visit an address in Chelmsford, Beardsley Drive in Chelmsford.
I've got a body turned up in the channel off Teignmouth, and we've traced him back out your way. Seems he might have lived out there. I wonder if you could drop round.
Sure. What's the name and address?
Platt. Ronald Platt. And here's the address.
Went to the address. It's an empty property by now. So some inquiries with the council revealed the landlord's details, and I went across and saw him. He said that the property had been vacated a few weeks or a few months previously. All he had as a forwarding address was an address in Wood and Water. And a name, David Davis.
Hello?
Hello. I'm looking for David Davis.
Speaking.
Are you an acquaintance of a man named Ronald Platt?
Yes, I know Ron. Who's calling, please?
It's Sergeant Peter Redman, sir. I don't want to discuss matters on the phone. Can I come to see you?
That really isn't convenient for me at the moment. Where are you? I can come to the police station if you like. What's this about?
Not to alarm you, Mr. Davis, but a body has turned up at sea off Devon, and it may be your friend, Mr. Platt.
Oh, my God.
Can you come to the station?
What about this afternoon at 2?
That would be fine. Thank you, Mr. Davis. I'll see you then. Bye-bye. Mr. Davis. Hello, Sergeant Peter Redman.
When I met David Davis at the police station, he struck me as a very well-to-do, very confident man, dressed casually, but very well. The clothes were of good quality.
I'm sorry to inconvenience you like this. It must be very difficult.
He held himself with an air of authority, and he came across as a really nice chap, the sort of person you'd happily meet in the pub and sit and have a drink with.
A fisherman in Devon pulled a body out of the sea about a month ago. The man was wearing a Rolex watch, which apparently belonged to Ronald Platt. Now, you say you knew him.
Yes, I did. I've known him for several years now. He was a good friend of mine. Now, last I saw of Ron, he was about to leave for France to start a TV repair business there. In fact, I loaned him...
He explained how Ron had decided to go across to France, to La Rochelle area in France, and that he was going to assist him in setting up business.
When was this, Mr. Davis?
June, I believe. Yes, it was June.
Did he leave an address in France?
No, he didn't. He really wasn't sure where he was going to end up. But his mail was being forwarded to my house.
And what did you receive?
Nothing, really. No.
And he couldn't assist with how Ron could have ended up in the sea off Devon.
Well, thank you, Mr. Davis. If you think of anything else, could you give me a call? Here's my card. Anything at all?
I think I do have a picture of Ron around somewhere, and if I can find it, I'll send it to you.
That would be helpful.
It's the least I can do.
We'll keep you informed, Mr. Davis.
Redman calls Clenahan and tells him Davis has little to offer. The lead has run dry. But the rookie is determined to crack the case.
I think in any investigator's mind, you don't like closing things down until you know exactly what has happened. And I was very keen to establish exactly what the cause of death was.
The next clue comes from the dead man himself. Ronald Platt's tattoo. Clenahan learns that Platt loved Canada and that the tattoo is the national emblem, the maple leaf. Clenaghan then discovers that Platt met Davis through Platt's girlfriend, Elaine Boyes.
I have something for you, too.
Turns out Davis played a role in Platt's Canadian connection.
Go ahead, open it.
5 years earlier.
I don't believe it.
It is what you wanted, or at least you said you did.
Well, yes, it's just that it's so very generous of you, Mr. Davis. So unexpected.
Go ahead, read it.
2 air tickets to Canada. I'm in shock. I really am. We're finally going and never coming back.
I'll drink to that.
Elaine leaves Ron after just 3 months in Canada and never sees him again. Platt is desperate, lonely, and broke. These facts lead Clenaghan to a new theory. Maybe Ron Platt simply came back to England to die. Forensic science supports the theory that Ron Platt was alive when he hit the water.
I could say that he did not die from the injury to his head because there's no skull fracture and the brain didn't show any evidence of injury. If it was inflicted during life, it would have stunned him, it would have made him unconscious. But I'm pretty sure that injury didn't kill him. And I also know that he was alive when he went into the water because he showed signs of drowning.
Fernando believes Platt has been in the water for just over a week. What he doesn't know is how far he might have drifted in that time. Police turn back to tidal expert Bob Allen for help.
The police asked me to look at 2 situations. Could the body have arrived at the site it was found by natural forces? And the other thing they were concerned about is, would he have moved under the forces of the sea during the time that he was missing?
Allen consults the tidal charts and assures investigators that ocean currents were not strong enough to have moved Platt's body. The question now is, how did he get there? The case has gone cold, but the rookie cop Clenaghan remains magnetized by the Rolex Man mystery. He calls Peter Redman in Essex one more time.
Pete, I'm a bit embarrassed by this, but I've lost the mobile number of that American Davis. I'm trying to close the file up on this case. I wonder if you could dig it out for me.
Well, no, I don't have it, but no, I do remember the address. It's a place out in the country. It's called Little London Farm. It's only a 20-minute drive from me. I'll go out and see him if you like.
Oh, that'd be great, Pete. Cheers. The boss really wants me to stop working on this Platt case, so just ask Davis if there's anything he could do to help us, and we'll call it a day.
Done.
So I drove over to Wood and Water.
Dumb luck leads Redmond to a twist no one expects.
As you can see, it's a narrow little lane. These 2 houses, at the time, they didn't have their names above them. So I knocked at this one, Little London House. Transpired the house next door was the one I wanted. Anyway, I spoke to the people at Little London House. I said, oh, after David Davis. Oh, David Davis doesn't live there. It's a Ron Platt. So my immediate thought was, well, if Ron Platt's living there, who's in the mortuary in Devon? I had a cup of tea with the elderly couple next door for some time, and they were telling me how that the person they knew as Ron Platt lived next door with his wife.
I'm not exactly sure what he does. The money seems to be absolutely no object. He has a lovely young wife, half his age, and 2 little children. They almost never leave the house.
What's his wife's name?
Noelle, and the children are Emily and Lily. They're away right now, up in York, I believe. They're away a lot these days. They also keep a lovely yacht down in Devon, where they spend most of the summer. Oh. I said something wrong?
Oh, probably not. If you don't mind, I'd like you to make no mention of my visit here. I don't want Mr. Platt to become alarmed that police have been involved.
Absolutely. Anything we can do to help.
Thank you both so much.
Why is David Davis masquerading as Ronald Platt? Now the police have a new mystery to unravel.
Hey, Ian.
Hello, Sergeant.
I just got back from David Davis's house.
Armed with new information, Sergeant Peter Redmond calls Ian Clenahan in Devon.
Turns out Davis is going by the name Ron Platt.
What?
Yeah, that's what I said too. He's Ron Platt up here in Essex. I checked it out at the hospital where his kid was born. Her birth name is Emily Platt.
Well, this doesn't make sense.
You won't be closing this Rolex case just yet.
Look, I'll have to talk to the boss.
Yeah, keep in touch.
I'll call you back, okay? Chief, I had a bit of a development with the Platt case. Turns out that David Davis has been using...
The police decide to reopen the Rolex Man mystery case. They discover that Davis has been signing checks using Platt's name. They also learn that Davis's wife is about 20 years old, at least 30 years younger than he is. They have 2 girls, a 3-year-old and a 10-month-old. Hospital records show that both children were registered with the last name Platt.
Although the pathologist hadn't said foul play was evident, based on the fact that he was living the identity of Ron Platt, there was obviously something very much amiss. Why was this man doing that? Posing as a dead person, effectively. One of the first thoughts was to arrest for an offence under the Official Secrets Act, actually, in relating to the false registration of the baby's birth.
We checked all his utility bills, his gas, his telephone, his electric, his water, and all of these bills were being paid in the name of Ronald Platt. We have Mr. Ronald Platt in Torbay Hospital, and we also have Mr. Ronald Platt living alive and well in Wood and Walter in Essex. And we then, at this stage, had to find out exactly what was going on.
They're away right now, up in York, I believe.
The neighbors have given police their most valuable clue,
A lovely yacht in Devon.
that the man they know as Ronald Platt keeps a sailboat in Devon.
Have I said anything wrong?
Oh, I've hit it many a time. Oh, yeah.
Did David Davis murder Ronald Platt?
First, we find out he's got a boat in Devon. Then we find out that he, in fact, or certainly his phone, was in Devon at the crucial time. So all of these added up to a very suspicious incident which warranted more investigation.
More damning evidence comes from Ron Platt's ex-girlfriend, Elaine Boyes.
Yeah, that's him.
When did you last see him?
Elaine Boyes thought it quite strange that Mr. Davis didn't actually mention to her that her ex-boyfriend had been found drowned off the sea in Devon.
That's not possible.
I'm sorry?
I spoke to Mr. Davis just last week. He didn't mention anything about Ron being dead. He said that Ron was in France.
Well, he's known since July.
Do you think that Mr. Davis might have had something to do with this? I can't imagine it.
No, Miss Boyes, we don't think so. We're really treating it as an accident. Don't jump to any conclusions.
Clenahan gets Davis's cell phone records and learns he was in Devon the week of Platt's murder. Eyewitnesses attest to seeing Davis and Platt at a local inn. Police decide it's all the evidence they need. On October 31st, 1996, Peter Redman arrests David Davis on suspicion of murder.
He recognised me straight away. I said, I'm arresting you, Mr. Davis, on suspicion of the murder of Ronald Platt. And he said, fine, what happens now? And when the officers searched him, in one pocket he was David Davis with all the identity documents, and in the other pocket he was Ron Platt.
They also arrest his 20-year-old wife, suspecting her as an accomplice. Baby Lily is just 10 months old, so she must accompany her mother to the station.
Good girl.
The toddler, Emily, is left with a neighbor.
Where are you going? I love you. I'll be back, I promise, okay?
Police will later discover that Noelle has packed a surprise in the toddler's bag.
And there were some gold bars and several £1,000s in cash, which is just what a 3-year-old needs for a few nights away.
British law provides police 36 hours to gather enough evidence to charge David Davis with murder. It is now a race against time. They cannot prepare themselves for the grotesque twists they will uncover. The woman known as Noelle Davis throws British police an unexpected curve. She is posing as Elaine Boyes, the ex-girlfriend of the murdered Ronald Platt.
Let's go over this one more time, Noelle.
I told you already. We moved from Long Island, New York in 1990.
And what were you doing with Elaine Boyes' ID?
We needed British ID to get health care for the children.
How old are you, Noelle?
21.
And your husband?
50.
And where exactly did you meet him? He's not your husband, is he?
Noelle finally breaks. She is not David Davis's wife. She is his daughter. Peter Redman recalls how the investigation froze at that moment.
Obviously, the questions of parentage of the two children became foremost in my mind. But the decision was made that the murder was the primary offence that we were investigating. And the issue of the children's parentage would be a matter that would be dealt with later at the appropriate time and in the appropriate place.
Meanwhile, David Davis will only say one thing.
Once again, Mr. Davis, this is a whole lot easier if you cooperate with us.
I want to see my solicitor.
At Davis's house, police seek clues to a murder. Instead, they find £30,000 in cash, 17 gold bars, and safety deposit keys that suggest their suspected murderer is a millionaire. They also find compromising photographs of David Davis and Noelle. It appears Davis may be the father of his daughter's children. The police have stumbled into a twisted world that may involve theft, incest, and finally, murder. Investigators discover a GPS. It is new technology in 1996, so it is sent to the manufacturer to see if it holds further clues. The cold case is now white hot. The trail leads to the fisherman who caught Ron Platt in his net 10 weeks earlier. He reveals evidence that was overlooked when police took Ron Platt's body from the nets.
That was a small anchor, small plough anchor. We didn't discover that until after the body had been removed from the boat and we were cleaning the nets out.
Unfortunately for police, Kopek has given the anchor away.
Another fisherman was walking along the quay and he said, "I've just bought a speedboat. That'd just suit my speedboat. Can I have it?" I said, "Help yourself, Derek."
It takes police a month to track it down. It is sent to forensic experts who may be able to see if the anchor holds hidden clues.
That was a turning point for me in the investigation because as soon as they mentioned an anchor in the same net, I found that of extreme interest. It was possibly coincidental, but if we've got a suspicion that a person has been drowned and foul play is suspected, then what better instrument is there to hold a guy on the bottom of the ocean than an anchor weight?
Ocean expert Bob Allen is certain that the anchor helped sink Ronald Platt.
At this stage in the investigation, the police realised that he may have been weighted down with a 10-pound anchor on the seabed near to where he was found. They were concerned about was whether there was any possibility he might have been moved by the ocean currents. To investigate that, I needed to study the ocean currents in the area that were occurring during that 10-day period. And I worked out the direction and the magnitude of those forces. They varied from day to day, they varied from tide to tide.
Allen is certain. With an anchor weighing him down, Platt could not move far from where he was dumped. Pathologist Guillen Fernando recalls the wound on the back of Ronald Platt's head.
Once we realized that the anchor had been used to weigh down the body, and the deceased was still alive when he went into the water and drowned, there was only one possibility, that he had been stunned by being hit on the head with a heavy blunt weapon, sufficient to knock him senseless, but not to kill him outright. And then obviously the anchor has been attached and it's been dropped in the water.
But can forensic science prove it? Fernando gets to work. Ronald Platt, frozen for more than 100 days, is brought out to thaw. Investigators give Dr. Guillen Fernando an anchor identical to the one caught in John Kopek's fishing nets. He makes a critical discovery.
He had two injuries on his leg, one near his hip, the other close to his knee. And when he placed the anchor against the body, along his thigh, you could see the points where the anchor would have been rubbing against the skin. And at those points, we had these two bruises, and that was the exact length of the shank of the anchor.
Fernando reports his discovery to police. Investigators now turn to more forensic experts to prove that David Davis killed Ronald Platt. The anchor found in the nets with Ron Platt's body is sent to the UK's elite Forensic Science Services lab. Dr. Ian Gray is assigned to the case.
He was trying to associate the anchor that had been trawled up in the same net with Mr. Platt. Obviously, the likely contact points there would be the trousers and the belt that he was wearing at the time the body was recovered. So we looked to see whether there was a transfer of material from the belt, namely the leather, to the anchor.
Gray first has the belt examined under a conventional microscope.
There was a definite kink in the belt, and the upper and lower surfaces were folding over, which would suggest that some kind of force or some pressure had actually been exerted in that area. When the inside of the belt in those areas was examined, it was noticeable that there were quite a lot of sort of scratches or abrasions in that area. Looking at that under low-power microscope, you could see that those abrasions were in fact translucent deposits that had actually been added to the belt.
Gray orders the belt scanned with an electron microscope, a high-tech device that can determine if the abrasions came from the zinc-coated anchor.
When a sample gives off X-rays, these X-rays have certain energies, and the system is calibrated across the full energy range.
Jones puts a sample from the belt into the microscope. The device scans for invisible evidence of metallic residue.
If I pull zinc up here, you can see that the two components we have, here and here, the energies correspond to the position of metallic zinc.
The belt is laced with zinc in one particular place, alongside Ron Platt's left hip. Crime scene analyst Brian Gallimore conducts an impromptu experiment.
Once I saw the anchor, I could see the type of anchor that it was, then it was very easy to slip inside my belt that I wore on a daily basis. And once it slipped through there, it actually kinked the belt and hung nicely over my left hip. The end of the anchor, which went and landed or was positioned just above the knee on the left-hand side, would have matched the bruising on the deceased. So this was a highly significant find.
Then the anchor itself is examined. Months later, the forensics tell the same story.
When you look at the anchor itself, you can see that at the base of the shank, there are brown deposits there, which would suggest that some material had actually been in contact with that part of the anchor.
All forensic evidence is circumstantial, but Gray's findings are compelling.
It's quite unusual to look at an anchor and find deposits of leather on it. If you were to pick up a substantial number of anchors, you'd probably find that none of them actually had deposits of leather attached to them.
David Davis's yacht, the Lady Jane, is scoured for more evidence. CSIs find just 3 human hairs.
Right, the Lady Jane, that was the #1 crime scene. That was the murder scene as we know it today. And then it was brought back to our force area and held, and eventually we took it to the Forensic Science Service at Chepstow, and myself and other officers, forensic officers, then made a very detailed examination of the inside and the outside of that vessel to put Platt on that yacht. There was a degree of hair and fibres that we were able to seize from soft furnishings within the galley of the vessel.
Colin Dark is the scientist assigned to the case.
We recovered those hairs and we formed the view that they'd been pulled out of someone's scalp. We cut off the roots and sent those for DNA analysis. The DNA test gave us a match for that tuft that we found at the scene to Ronald Platt's reference DNA sample. Match probability of 1 in 3 million.
The dragnet is tightening around David Davis. The fact that CSIs have found no blood is no surprise to Dark.
Not to find Ronald Platt's blood on the boat is not an unexpected result. Someone can receive a blow to the head, render them unconscious, so they're disabled and can be then manhandled off the boat, weighed down, whatever. It might leave the small tuft of hairs behind, but it doesn't split the skin, so there's no bleeding, and no blood gets left behind. They're knocked out.
It came up very empty, yes it did, but as we know, not all injuries will produce profuse amounts of blood. So the absence of blood does not mean there's been no crime. It'd be very nice to find lots of blood and be able to prove that is the blood of the deceased, but it's not always possible, and it certainly wasn't on this occasion.
Now, investigators believe they have all the pieces of the puzzle.
Ron, can you hand me that bag on the deck there?
Sure. All right, David. Yeah, oh, Jesus, bloody heavy.
Yeah.
What's in it?
Oh, just some stuff I picked up in Dartmouth. Sailing things, you know, anchor, rope.
It's good to be back here. Never thought I'd say that. But I missed being here.
It's good to see you back on your feet again.
Not quite. But at least getting there. And I must say again, David, I can't thank you enough for all your help, especially these last few days.
It's nothing.
No, really. You're the only friend I have. I just have a feeling, you know? This time things will be different.
Then the final breakthrough. Technicians download the last date, time, and position from Davis's GPS. July 20th, 1996, 9:00 p.m. Just under 4 miles from where the fishermen snagged Ronald Platt's body, and within the timeline left by the stopped Rolex watch on the dead man's arm, police now believe they have enough evidence to go to trial. There is a final unexpected twist. Interpol informs British police that their suspect is not David Davis at all. His name is Albert Walker. He is a Canadian. The real David Davis is a car salesman whose identity Walker stole in 1990. Now the story gets even more bizarre. Noelle Davis is really Sheena Walker. She was 15 when she went on the run with her father. In the 1980s, Walker posed as a financial advisor and stole millions of dollars from small-town people in Canada.
Wife lost the business, our life saving, and the house. As I said before, if I had a gun, I would have shot him. He was a handsome guy, well-dressed, shiny shoes, and the wife loved him.
By 1990, Walker was running out of people to steal from. His wife of 22 years was starting to get suspicious. He moved $3 million out of the country and hopped on a plane to Europe with Sheena. Once in England, Walker convinced Ronald Platt to move to Canada.
And never coming back.
I'll drink to that.
Platt authorized a rubber stamp of his signature. Walker also got copies of Elaine Boy's ID so that his daughter Sheena could assume her identity. Platt stays in Canada for 3 years before he returns to the UK. He looks up his old friend Walker, a.k.a. David Davis, a.k.a. Ronald Platt. Platt's unexpected return is a threat to Walker's new identity. Enough of a threat to kill him, the investigators believe. Now it's time to see if a jury agrees. Albert Walker languishes in prison for over a year and a half. In June 1998, he gets his day in court.
Mr. Barton, for the Crown.
Thank you, my lord. The prosecution calls Miss Sheena Walker.
The Crown's star witness is none other than Sheena Walker.
Do you remember Saturday, July 20th?
Yes, I do.
Did your father go sailing that day?
Yes, he did.
And what time did he return?
Later on in the evening, 10 o'clock approximately.
Did you have a discussion?
I asked him how the sailing was, what the weather was like, that sort of thing. He was very tired, so we just went to bed. Is that you?
Yeah,
How was sailing?
fine.
Lovely day.
You know, I'm feeling really tired. I'm just gonna go upstairs to bed.
Good night, then.
Why did you live this fabrication? That you were your father's wife?
Well, my father suggested that, because there was a small child, we should present ourselves as husband and wife.
The jury has come to try a murderer. Nothing could prepare them for the sickening suggestion of incest surrounding Albert and Sheena Walker.
Your father
After a week of testimony from investigators and forensic experts, Albert Walker himself takes the stand.
We were as husband and wife. She was somewhat embarrassed that she was a single girl and wanted to have the appearance that she wasn't single.
And the child's name?
Emily Jane Platt.
Then it's the Crown's turn.
And you called Sheena what?
Noel.
And she called you what?
Daddy.
Well, that must have raised a few eyebrows.
Why?
Because you were living as husband and wife.
Emily called me Daddy, and Sheena called me Daddy. Occasionally, she would call me Ron, but when Ron was there, she would call me Daddy or Dad.
The subject finally turns to murder.
Do you acknowledge the motive you had for ridding yourself of Ronald Platt? The real Ronald Platt?
What motive?
Did you not recognize him as a threat to your future life?
No.
That he might jeopardize your money and your liberty?
I did not murder Ronald Platt. He was a friend of mine.
It all comes down to the forensic evidence. The anchor, which left a telltale mark on Platt's body. The GPS, placing Walker's yacht at the scene. The cell phone calls and credit card bills proving Walker was in Devon. Platt's hair, found on the yacht. And finally, the Rolex, establishing the time of death.
That man is a murderer. He executed Ronald Platt with a degree of planning that I would call chilling.
We are not here to determine what you may think of Albert Walker as a man. We are here to decide what conclusions you may safely reach based on the Crown's evidence. How does the Crown's evidence stand up against its theory? Now, the Crown's case has many fatal flaws. Where is the burden of proof?
The jury deliberates for just 2 hours. The verdict, guilty.
This was a callous, premeditated killing, designed to eliminate a man you had used for your own selfish ends. He became a danger to you, and he had to die. You are an intelligent and ruthless man who poses a serious threat to anyone who stands in your way. And I shall have regard to that when making recommendations to the Home Secretary for the length of your sentence. You may go down.
Albert Walker is sentenced to life in prison. To this day, he proclaims his innocence. A forensic trail that began with a Rolex and ended with a GPS revealed his brilliant murder plot. He nearly got away with a near-perfect crime.
Yeah, Walker was a very unfortunate person, but we were very fortunate in as much as we recovered the anchor, the GPS system that put his boat out at a particular time. Everything that, or most everything that we pursued came back with very positive evidence. And if we hadn't dealt with that evidence positively and effectively, then yeah, Walker could be a free man today.
Sheena Walker has a new life in Canada. The paternity of her 2 daughters has never been made public. In 2005, Albert Walker is permitted to return to Canada to serve out his sentence. His reason? To be closer to his family.